This is day 10 of learning German. So far, I've been avoiding grammar like the plague. Because I've been immersing myself in German content, my understanding has gotten good, but I haven't been able to form sentences well without this key concept. So I spent a few days going really deep on German grammar, and here is a few-minute summary that I wish I had when I started learning it. So the first thing you need to know, if you don't already know, is that every German noun has one of three genders: masculine, feminine, or neuter. For example, you have der Mann, the man, which is masculine, die Frau, the woman, which is feminine, and das Baby, which is the baby, which is neuter. It turns out that a ton of German grammar concepts build off the concepts of the gender of a noun. So it's important when you learn a word to also learn the article. So if you're learning man, don't just learn Mann, learn der Mann. So the genders of each noun are mostly random, so you kind of just have to learn them all. There are some patterns like here, but there are exceptions, so you kind of just have to learn them. So the next fundamental concept is that of the case system. It's not too different than what we have in English, but it's much more important. So for example, if you take the sentence, I give the dog the ball. In German, that would be Ich gebe dem Hund den Ball. So the first case, the nominative case, is the subject of the sentence. So in this case, it's ich or I. And so the next case is the accusative case. That's the thing being acted on. In this case, it's the ball. Finally, we have the dative case, which is the thing or person that the action is being done to. In this case, the dog. And the fourth and last case is about possession. It's called the genitive case. It doesn't come up as often. For example, if you take a sentence like das Spielzeug des Hundes, the dog, the thing that's possessing the toy is des Hundes, the dog. So that would be part of the genitive case. Okay, cool. Well, there's gender and there's case. Why do I care? Well, you've already seen 3 ways of saying the, so there's actually 8. And the reason for that is because of the combinations of gender, case, and even number. If we look at our sentence, we have dem and den. Those also mean the, but they're different because of the cases that we were talking about earlier. And so the reason this is important is because if we just slightly modify the sentence and say, Ich gebe den Hund dem Ball, it seems almost the same, but by flipping den and dem, now we're saying, I give the ball the dog, which doesn't really make any sense. Funnily enough, the reason we don't have different endings based on case in English is because we don't have flexibility in our sentence structure. So here we can kind of order the sentence however we want. There are actually 2 different ways we can say the same sentence and it mean the exact same thing. We can say den Ball gebe ich dem Hund or dem Hund gebe ich den Ball. And those are both completely correct and they mean the same thing. And the decision to put something at the start of the sentence is actually usually for emphasis. So in the same way that we say, I gave the ball to the dog to emphasize the ball, we can just do that in German by putting it at the start of the sentence. As a quick note, you might notice that the verb always tends to stay in the second position. And that is a rule that generally holds in German, not always, but that is a good thing to know for sentence structure. All right, so now that you understand that the has different forms based on gender, case, and number, this is actually part of a larger concept called declensions, which just means different forms based on gender, case, and number. And it's not just the. There are many parts of speech that change. We have articles like the and that have different declensions. We have pronouns like I, you, me, your, his, etc. that also have declensions. And then we have adjectives that describe a noun that also decline. It can be quite overwhelming at the start. It certainly was for me. But there are strategies to minimize the amount of memorization that we need. This chart, for example, is pretty obscure at first, but it sort of summarizes all of the patterns that come up with declensions. And that's sort of it for the basics. When you start paying attention to the gender of nouns, to the cases in a sentence, and to the declension patterns in those sentences, you're sort of off to the races, and then it's just practice, 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 as we all know. But this sort of elucidated the murky water that grammar was for me. And this allowed me to build a foundation that I could build off of. Thanks for watching.